Test, test. Legislator Brew, Legislator DeFlorio, can you hear us?
I can, Dave. This is Steve.
Yes, I can. This is
Okay.
Tracy.
Thank you. We're going to get started.
The May 14th, 2024 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart is present. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy is present. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines is present. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley is present. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick is present. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Brew is present. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess is present. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy is present. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz is present. Ms. LaVecchia Hoffman. Ms. LaVecchia Hoffman is present. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier is present. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman is present. Ms. Hugh Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith is present. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns is present. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller is present. Mr. Long. Mr. Long is present. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe is present. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre is present. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne is present. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris is present. President Roman.
Here.
President Roman is present. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons is present. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson is present.
Please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Please stand as Legislator Vasquez Simmons will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
The United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I ask that you all stand up or remain standing. Without objection, we will take agenda item number 26 out of the regular agenda order. Agenda item number 26 is moved by Legislator Udelson and seconded by Legislator Smith, expressing regret for the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Arnold J. Eckert, former Monroe County Legislature President and Legislator.
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of former Monroe County Legislature President and Legislator Arnold J. Eckert. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deepest sympathy at the recent passing of former Monroe County Legislature President and Legislator Arnold Arnie J. Eckert. And whereas President Eckert passed away peacefully, surrounded by loved ones on April 4, 2024, at the age of 94. And whereas Arnold J. Eckert was born on November 9th, 1929 in Rochester, New York, the son of Arnold and Margaret Eckert, and grew up at the family's home on Keeler Street. As a teenager, Arnie became a licensed pilot and photographer. He graduated from Edison Tech High School in 1947 and subsequently attended the Rochester Business Institute prior to becoming his successful private sector career in banking, retiring as a vice president at Chase Lincoln. He additionally served in the National Guard, rising to the rank of first lieutenant, and was a founding parishioner of Christ the King Parish in Irondequoit. And whereas President Eckert first entered politics in 1978 after expressing an interest in filling a vacancy to represent his neighbors in the town of Irondequoit on the Monroe County Legislature. He earned the appointment and was elected 6 times as legislator for the 17th District, serving 17 years through 1995. Prior to being elected president, Arnie served a number of important roles in the legislature, including chair of the Public Safety Committee in 1980 for 1 year, chair and later ranking member of the Powerful Ways and Means Committee in 1981 for 8 years, and Republican caucus leader in 1989 for 4 years. Following the 1992 election, in which Republicans won control of the county legislature, he was elected to serve president of the legislature from 1993 until his retirement on December 31, 1995. And whereas Arnie was well known in our community as a passionate public servant, he was instrumental in the establishment of the Consolidated 911 system in Monroe County and served 40 years on its operating practices board, including a majority of those as its chair. Monroe County employees, both past and present, have Arnie to thank for instituting their deferred compensation plan and guiding its investment stewardship as its chair for many years. Threats of violence and even a pipe bomb scare at his home did not discourage his successful advocacy for a population management program that reduced vehicular collisions involving deer in Irondequoit. A firm believer in the legislature's oversight role, Arnie restored the county's internal audit function and carved out a seat for the president of the legislature on the MCC Board of Trustees. And whereas those who served with or were represented by Arnie knew him as a fiscally conservative, accessible, and conscientious public official. He did his homework, asked the tough questions, and was knowledgeable on each matter placed before the legislature, both big and small. He had the courage of his convictions. While you may not have always agreed with Arnie, you always knew where he stood. And whereas Arnie is survived by his beloved bride of 72 years, Sally Francis, his children, David, Marianne Delora, Michael, James, John, Ellen, and Catherine, grandchildren, Katie, Jessica, Lindsay, Matthew, Claire, Emma, Sam, Sarah, Kristen, Lauren, Jake, Ray, William, Mary, Emily, and great-grandchildren, Gia, Cecilia, Luca, Max, Ben, Joy, Leo, Jane, and Nora, and sister-in-law, Mary Moriarty, and many nieces and nephews. He will be missed by all who knew, respected, and admired him. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted unanimously, with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
We will now move on to the approval of the agenda. Your copies of day 5 April 9th, 2024 are available through Novus Agenda without exception. This journal will stand approved as submitted. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. There are several proclamations scheduled this evening. Mr. Clerk.
Would the peace officers please come forward? Also, County Executive Adam J. Bello and President Yaversha Rahman.
They're coming in out of the hallway.
Legislator Donovan. Legislator Mafucci. Legislator Long, too.
The Monroe County Legislature recognizes National Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed into law May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, honoring all law enforcement officers who have died or been injured in the line of duty. And whereas Monroe County is desirous of recognizing and honoring all those law enforcement officers who, over the years, have lost their lives while answering the call of duty. And whereas the week in which Peace Officer Memorial Day falls is celebrated as National Police Week, recognizing the important role that all law enforcement officers play in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of all citizens. And whereas members of law enforcement dedicate their lives to the safety of our community, more than 21,000 law enforcement officers have lost their lives on the job. It is estimated that approximately 16,000 are injured in the line of duty yearly. And whereas these dedicated members of law enforcement deserve to be honored for their willingness to perform that selfless public service on behalf of all of our citizens. And whereas Monroe County wishes to acknowledge the difficult job we ask our deputy sheriffs, state police, local police officers, and other members of law enforcement to perform, and to thank them for their willingness and sacrifice. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Adam J. Bello, County Executive, Yaversha Rahman, President, Dave Long, Legislator, District 16, Howard Mafucci, Legislator, District 10, and Paul Dondorfer, Legislator, District 9, do hereby honor National Peace Officers Memorial Day on this 14th day of May, 2024.
Hi. Well, thank you. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight. I'm glad that you really took time out of your meeting to recognize law enforcement. It's been a very challenging time. I've been chief now almost 5 years, and this has not been a moment of calm in this profession. And it's really the men and women that are out there every day and every night that really deserve this honor. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'll post this in our department, and I'll share this with all the people in our department. Thank you.
Would the corrections officers please come forward? Also, County Executive Adam J. Bello, Legislators Howard Mafucci, Dave Long, Paul Dondorfer, and President Yaversha Rahman.
The Monroe County Legislature recognizes National Correctional Officers Week. Whereas on May 5th, 1984, the President of the United States proclaimed that the first full week of May each year would be observed as National Correctional Officers Week in recognition of the important role these officers play in our criminal justice system. And whereas in 1996, Correctional Officers Week was expanded to include all employees that work in corrections, acknowledging the sacrifices and commitment of every individual that works in the field. And whereas in the year 2024, correctional officers and other correctional employees continue to play that important role in an ever more stressful environment. The nation is seeing a widespread shortage of those willing to work in corrections, resulting in a much more demanding and dangerous environment for many of our correctional officers and employees. And whereas correctional officers and correctional employees spend countless hours away from their families in high-stress work environments, it is imperative that we acknowledge the difficult job asked of correctional officers and the sacrifices they make every day. And whereas Monroe County is desirous of recognizing the conscientious, difficult, and dedicated service our correctional officers and correctional employees perform for the community. And now, therefore, let it be known that we, Adam J. Bello, County Executive, Iversha Roman, President, Dave Long, Legislator, District 16, Howard Mafucci, Legislator, District 10, and Paul Dondorfer, Legislator, District 9, do hereby recognize National Correctional Officers Week on this 14th day of May, 2024.
Absolutely phenomenal to recognize these hardworking men and women that work in behind the walls in all correctional fields, let alone the Monroe County Jail. Very difficult job, was narrated. Very difficult people to get to work in that environment, to stay in that environment for 25 years. And we are a maximum security facility. Think about that. You never know who's coming through the front doors of Monroe County Jail. You can have everybody who's made a very silly mistake in their life, all the way up to a murder suspect, a rape suspect, Arthur Shawcross spending many days in it. So that's the diversity of the folks that we are keeping in custody. With that being said, we spend a lot of time and energy also trying to get people on the right feet and get them back into society on the right feet. So it's you're playing that game all day long, if you will. People that want help, need help, plus people that are in there that are very dangerous. And they do it with a lot of professionalism. So thank you so much for recognizing them. That's what I'm saying. Thank you for seeing that they do it with a lot of skill, empathy, and compassion. And it's a very difficult job. And we appreciate you recognizing them. I can't wait to share this with them. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Would members of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office and chiefs of police from various towns in Monroe County please come forward? Also, County Executive Adam J. Bello, Legislators Paul Dondorfer and Mike Udelson, and President Iversha Roman.
The Office of Monroe County Executive and Monroe County Legislature recognizes Police Week. Whereas our society is built and sustained on the foundational pillars of the safety, security, and well-being of our communities. And whereas the dedicated law enforcement professionals, through their unwavering commitment, courage, and professionalism, uphold these pillars, tirelessly working to preserve peace, protect life and property, and ensure justice for all. And whereas each day, law enforcement officers across our nation answer the call of duty, facing unknown risks and challenges with steadfast resolve, integrity, and compassion. And whereas Police Week stands as a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made by law enforcement personnel who willingly place themselves in harm's way to safeguard our communities, often at great risk. And whereas during this week of reflection and gratitude, we honor the memory of those officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, paying tribute to their selflessness, valor, and dedicated service to others. And whereas we also express our profound appreciation to the families of law enforcement officers whose support, love, and sacrifice are the bedrock upon which our law enforcement community stands strong. And whereas the tireless efforts of police officers extend far beyond enforcing laws, they serve as pillars of strength and beacons of hope within our communities, fostering trust, building bridges, and embodying the principles of service and guardianship. Now, therefore, we, Monroe County Executive Adam J. Bello, Monroe County Legislature President Iversha Roman, Majority Leader Michael Udelson, Minority Leader Steve Brew, and the members of the Monroe County Legislature do hereby proclaim May 19th through 25th, 2024, to be a time to recognize Police Week in Monroe County and call upon every resident to recognize the critical role of law enforcement officers and thank all those who engage in this noble profession, past and present.
What did I do? Speech. Thanks, Todd. Again, not prepared to say anything, but again, thank you very much. Been doing this job for almost 32 years, and it's humbling, and it's great to actually see the support, knowing that our officers are out there every day doing an honest job, doing a hard job, expected to be perfect 100% of the time, which they aren't. We're human beings, but still showing up every day to do the job and doing it the way that it's supposed to be. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Would members of the EMS units that are here this evening please come forward? Also, County Executive Adam J. Bello, legislators Paul Dondorfer, Mike Udelson, and President Yversha Rome.
I know we've got a few out there. Yeah. They might not know.
The Office of Monroe County Executive and Monroe County Legislature recognizes EMS Week. Whereas emergency medical services providers saves lives every day. They provide a crucial public service staffed by highly trained and dedicated first responders who prioritize the well-being of others. Monroe County is proud to be the home of these committed public servants who selflessly protect lives around the clock. And whereas EMS responders provide essential care for individuals facing sudden illness or injury, including critical mobile out-of-hospital care, working long shifts, countless hours, and providing services to our residents anytime, day or night. And whereas to appropriately provide these vital services requires extensive training and ongoing education. This is true for both volunteer and career first responders, including emergency medical technicians, paramedics, dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, emergency nurses, and emergency physicians. Monroe County is fortunate to have a well-established and diverse emergency medical field within our community. And whereas, with the deepest gratitude, we recognize the dedication and accomplishments of all Monroe County's emergency medical service providers and those who support their operations. The services they provide every day save and change lives, all while protecting our families and loved ones. Now, therefore, we, Monroe County Executive Adam J. Bello, Monroe County Legislature President Yversha Roman, Majority Leader Michael Udelson, Minority Leader Steve Brew, and the members of the Monroe County Legislature do hereby proclaim May 19th through 25th, 2024 to be a time to recognize EMS Week in Monroe County and call upon every resident to recognize the endurance, collaboration, and commitment of EMS providers.
First, I have to apologize. The light here is very bright, so if there's any glare, it's not intended. This year is 50 years since the President Ford declared National EMS Week, 1974. The collective experience up here is far over 50 years, and I don't mean that to call anyone old, but all things said and done, our EMS community is slowly shrinking. So the acknowledgement of our service is greatly appreciated. We appreciate your support. Thank you.
We'll now move to presentation of formal committee reports. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. Thank you to everyone who has signed up for the public forum. We ask that everyone maintain decorum during the public forum. We will not tolerate any disruptions during the speeding from the gallery. A second warning will be issued from a deputy before you may be asked to be removed from gallery. We have several people registered to address the legislature. Mr. Clerk.
If you require assistance, a deputy is available to assist you in approaching the lectern. I will call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature, and kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds and exit back the way you entered. Thank you for your cooperation. The first 3 speakers are Paul Forcella, Maggie Kane, and David Malecki.
In 5,000 million years from now, the sun will become a nova and fry the Earth and possibly Mars. We should not hasten Earth's demise with global warming. Damage to Earth's environment is already being done by global warming. Oceans are rising. By 2100 AD, some cities will flood, and storms and droughts are getting worse. Read the news. Polar ice is melting fast, and glaciers are receding. Global warming conferences are not doing enough. Companies should be firmly dealt with so they stop putting greenhouse gases in the environment. Cars worldwide should be firmly regulated to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Otherwise, the Earth may resemble the planet Venus soon. We should act now.
Good evening, County Legislatures. My name is Maggie Kane. I'm with Voiceless of Verona Street, an advocacy group that we started about 3 years ago to make much-needed changes at our city shelter, which is known as Rochester Animal Services, or also known as Verona Street. I just want to preface by saying, for the last 3 years, I have spoken to City Council every month at Speak to Council and have gotten no response. I want to let you know our city shelter is crumbling inside and out. It's built in the 1940s, has several code violations, has no isolation rooms, rusty cages, dogs in kennels. Right now it's over capacity, so there's dogs in crates on the floor. Under the political appointment of the mayor, Shirley Green is overseeing the shelter. I've personally met with her, and she told me that she has never had an animal and doesn't like animals. The overworked bare minimum staff is dying along with the animals inside. What does this have to do with the county? Well, currently there are no owner surrender dogs being allowed at the shelter. So I don't know if you've noticed, dogs are being dumped all over the county. We need your financial support to build a shelter that meets the needs of our community. The 2025 Companion Animal Care Act goes into effect from Governor Hochul in December 2025. Currently, Rochester Animal Services does not meet any of the new requirements. So as nothing is done, you will find yourselves faced with a bigger animal crisis than we have now. I'm pleading with you to maybe meet with us, to have a meeting with City Council, and be a voice for the voiceless. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Tyrus Adams, Terrence Schnurr, and Abdul Bounds.
Good evening, Madam President. I want to congratulate the district attorney on a impressive achievement. She has surpassed such notables as Alan Hevesy, Elliot Spitzer, Andrew Cuomo, and Ilhan Omar to become the person I most regret ever casting a vote for. It will surprise no one that when I'm having a bad day and unhappy with the situation, I can be irritable and say things I don't exactly mean. But you can be certain that my central grievance is something I believe to the core of my being. The district attorney deserves due process and the consideration by proper authorities of her actions on April 22nd. But one thing we already know for certain is that she believes in the core of her being that she should not be subject to the same laws she prosecutes others under. That belief has no place in law enforcement. She should have resigned 3 weeks ago, and every public official in this county who values the rule of law over the good old Boys and Girls Network will call for her to do so now. Thank you and have a good night.
Good evening, legislators. My name is Abdul K. Bounds. I am 32 years old, a resident of Monroe County. I love this city and I love this county. But what I do not love is the crime and the fraud. Oh, God. All right. My city and county is imploding. Children in our city schools are paying the consequences. I know the county doesn't deal with the city schools, but the kids need human services at every school to help deal with their emotional state. Our children face homelessness, mental health issues, and poverty, to name a few facts. We also need the county's help with violence. Please create a task force to help, particularly as we end towards the school year at Franklin High School, which we all know. We've seen on the news of stolen Kias being driven on properties, basically trying to kill people. We need help. We pay taxes too. I do not want to lose faith and hear your constituents plead for help. Our kids are dying. And lastly, stop awarding nonprofits millions without checking them out. This hurts the community more than it pretty much like solves the problem. So pretty much, I'm speaking to you individuals. I voted for you. I'm going to hold you accountable. Once again, this is not blue versus red. It is time for Democrats and Republicans to work together. Once again, we will see the county or the state or even the country fail if we don't pull together. This is why I'm here. I'm not here to call anyone out. I'm here to just speak the facts and the truth.
Our next three speakers are Rebecca Collins, Brendan Smock, and Glenna Chance.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Collins. My husband and I moved to Webster 7.5 years ago after living 30 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. We love this area and spend a great deal of time enjoying the local parks, the Finger Lakes, and the Big Lake. I am a retired science teacher and curriculum developer. I am a staunch advocate for protecting the environment and a member of Color Webster Green. I'm pleased that New York has taken steps to become a leader in climate action, including passing the CLCPA in 2019. And locally, it's excellent that Monroe County is in the final phase of drafting a climate action plan. I've attended the 3 public workshops to learn about the focus areas and the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% from 2019 levels. One of the focus areas of the climate action plan is sustainable materials management. The EPA estimates that more food reaches landfills than any other single material, accounting for a total of 24% of solid waste. When food is buried in landfills, it breaks down without oxygen and produces methane, a powerful greenhouse gas. A solution to this is to develop systems-level composting facilities in order to divert food waste from landfills. Composting breaks down food in the presence of oxygen to produce a rich, fertile soil amendment that recycles valuable nutrients back into local ecosystems. New York State passed the food donation and food scraps recycling law in 2022. However, there is currently no facility within Monroe County that can accommodate this law. I would like to see multiple composting facilities built within the county. Transporting food waste out of the county wastes money and further contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. The benefits of local composting include improving soil quality, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, saving money, and generating jobs. Thank you for your consideration in this important matter.
Good evening. I would like to start by thanking everyone for allowing me to speak. I am Brendan Smock from Brockport, New York. I have some questions for the legislator and the people of Rochester. For the legislator, where do you find in the law that you can just outright lie to the American people? In this instance, I'm talking about Dr. Mendoza. Why did he only serve 1 year and 3 months of his 6-year appointment? Let's just say that his departure was one of two scenarios: A, suspicious, or B, coincidence. How is it that he was dismissed, resigned, terminated, or however you want to put it, at the same time that the negative side effects of the COVID vaccine started getting published? Then there's a body found in the part of the city's water supply. So you rightfully tell people to boil the water. But the body had been in the reservoir for 3 weeks prior to being found. What are the health ramifications of that? Can you tell me? What kind of oversight is actually going on here? If there is ongoing litigation that you are prohibited from talking about Dr. Mendoza and his departure, then tell us that. Don't hold a closed-door meeting and act nefarious. Another example of despicable behavior amongst our leaders comes from the Rochester City School District. They just passed a $1 billion budget that immediately went into a closed-door meeting. What happened once the doors were closed? The public has a right to attend these meetings. Closed-doors meetings should not be allowed when you are taking taxpayer money. And seeing that it will cost $4,500 per resident for this budget, as a citizen, we have a right to at least hear how you are spending the money. Also, I was recently made aware that Rochester has been known for bid rigging. So out of that $1 billion, how many bids have already been predetermined with kickbacks to the school board? Is that what was being discussed behind those closed doors? The backdoor deals you don't want anyone to know about? You as a legislator should demand all bids be made public, unless you don't want them accessible to the community because you know there is something to hide. Now on to the citizens. How do we allow this to happen? These people represent us. They are not allowed to have the answer of no. They must answer to us. They work for us. We do not work for them. This is my first time coming and talking in this meeting, but you must have just awoken a hibernating bear. I am now lurking in the woods, watching and waiting. And once you hear the roar, it'll be far too late. In conclusion, all I want to say is they don't really care about us.
Good evening. My name is Glenna Chance, and I have been bringing true and accurate information on RGE's so-called smart meters to the public for almost 2 years now. What RGE has dispensed as consumer information is not based on fact, but on marketing propaganda. Thus, your consent to RGE's radio frequency microwave digital data collection meter, the accurate technical description of these meters, is not informed consent. It can't be, as you have not been accurately informed. If you spend any time on the phone with RGE, this will be reinforced, as RGE customer-facing staff have no accurate answers to the most simple questions regarding these meters. This is either by design to impose their grid despite the scientifically proven devastation it historically causes, or true ignorance of the technology, which is professionally and, in my opinion, morally inexcusable. Here, once again, are steps you need to take to protect yourself, your family, and your property. Inform yourself about these meters by reading the information at stopsmartmeters.org and nysuma.org. It's up to you. Report suspected and/or medically validated injury to the county health department. Whether or not they choose to track these reports is immaterial, although it is their job. You keep track. What RGE won't tell you is that all the smart meters broadcast to collector or endpoint meters, which radiate at many times the levels of the individual meters. They will not disclose their locations. Did they place one of these in your neighborhood, on your property? Did they tell you? Call the personal injury lawyers that advertise on TV. I have called some about this and they are interested. Remember, smart meter injury cases will be the next Camp Lejeune and Big Tobacco. Conscious disregard of a known risk is a legal term which likely will have significant bearing on upcoming legal actions regarding smart meter injury and property damage. You can avoid potential injury by saying no to this meter. Pay the fee for now. After the fact, mitigation will cost you thousands. No exposure to radiation is safe, and exposure is cumulative. Think about that and decide what you want for your life. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Michael Lohr, Mary Ellen Belding, and Rachel Pryor.
Good evening. Michael Lohr, representing the Voiceless of Verona Street. We are a small organization with big hearts, looking out for the welfare of the city's pet population. Show of hands, please. How many pet owners are here? Raise your hand if you have a pet. Okay, that's my audience. Okay, but everybody, please pay close attention. As my partner Maggie said, for more than 3 years, we have been publicly voicing our concerns about the unacceptable conditions at Rochester Animal Services. Our first breakthrough was the news of former director Chris Fitzgerald resigning. We needed that to happen. However, this left a serious absence of any leadership at all. Under the current direction of Commissioner Shirley Green, the animals and staff are suffering more than ever. There are far too many problems to even attempt to discuss here tonight, but allow me to mention a few highlights. One, the need for a spay and neuter policy for adopting out animals, a policy which was recently discontinued by Shirley Green. Next, the $640,960 surplus in funds from the Verona Street Animal Society's 2021 public tax record, while the animal shelter requests on social media for donations of dog food, collars, peanut butter, and distilled water. Simply ridiculous. Where does that money go? Okay, the fact that several Rochester Animal Services and VSAS salaries are paid for from public donations. Is this even legal? I really would like to know that. Public donations paying salaries. It's ridiculous. And then lastly, the total lack of sanitary and safety improvements to the RAS facility. Built in 1940, by the way, it is crumbling physically, which is in violation of many building codes, proven by the May 2023 building assessment, which is available upon request. To date, our concerted efforts over the past 3 years have not resulted in any municipal response. We hope by being a voice of protest for our city's helpless, voiceless animals, we can call public attention to this problem. We need funding for a new shelter in the city, please. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of Monroe County. My name is Mary Ellen Belding. I am a former woman-owned commercial construction contractor in Monroe County in the city of Rochester. I'm also a whistleblower, a federal witness, a mother, and a wife. Liberty and justice for all. We all stood here this evening, put our hands on our hearts, and recited it, except if you're marked in New York, and I am marked. I am the whistleblower that exposed the Rochester City School Modernization Program. When I originally began, it was because the heinous abuse, bigotry, racism, and misogyny that was happening. It was destructive. It was intention to put businesses like mine out of business. Going forward, I paid a high price for that, a very high price. Regardless of what it says in the law of how I'm protected, I'm only protected as the people entrusted to ensure the laws are appropriately applied. That did not happen with me. Excuse me. I had to write this down because the abomination that I suffered in my family through the justice system of Monroe County in New York needs to be exposed, and that's what I will do. This started out with the U.S. versus Crane Hogan Structural Systems, Mark Pulley Blank and William Clements, which I was a federal witness and had federal witness immunity, which meant nothing. The next one was Daniel C. Hogan and Crane Hogan Structural Systems versus Mary Ellen Belden, in which I was a federal witness. However, I was kept in Monroe County Hall of Justice for 4.5 years on a defamation lawsuit without my affidavit that I was protected by federal witness immunity. The third one was Daniel C. Hogan, Secretary Trustee for the Rochester Local Laborers Union 435 benefit funds against structural remediation services and Mary Ellen Belding. $859. Okay. I will be back, but I have 8 here, and it is not just.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm sorry for your, thank you.
Was not collateral damage.
Sorry to hear that.
What brings me here today is my privilege, white privilege. Unpacking 38 years of privilege, I can't help but cry for those humans without privilege. This anonymous quote speaks volume. Privilege is a blanket that you should wrap around as many people as you can. When I was in public middle school, my homeroom teacher would say at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, just like this, with liberty and justice for all, except you guys. She never missed a day. I remained silent even when I knew something wasn't right. I remained silent even when I could have spoken up. I sat in silence and let my leadership do me wrong. I regret not telling anyone. I regret not using my voice. I ask you, Monroe County public servants, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for you to support a public utility study that may allow millions of dollars to stay here in Monroe County? What's it going to take for you to protect Americans' right to freedom of speech? But the policies enacted by the U.S. government since October have moved only to protect the oppressive regime in Israel. Starvation is a policy decision. We defunded UNRWA based on illegitimate claims and looked away when 7 international aid workers were murdered by Israel, causing the World Food Kitchen to temporarily stop making meals for millions of starving people. We looked away from the Flower Massacre, where 118 starving Palestinians were murdered by Israel while trying to eat. Were there sanctions? No. There was no end to military aid for Israel, just more starving Palestinians. Right now, there are thousands of aid trucks with rotting food at the border because Israel is not allowing them in. Has the United States changed course? No, we continue to empower the genocide of the Palestinians. What's it going to take for you as leaders to use your privilege and power to stop the forced and intentional starvation of Palestinians? As a human being, I have an obligation to speak up for humanity, human rights, international law, and justice for all. Again, what's it going to take? I leave you with this quote from Toni Morrison. When you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, your job is to empower somebody else. Stop the forced and intentional starvation, permanent ceasefire now, free Palestine, and end the occupation.
Our next 3 speakers are Joanne Thomas, Kevin Lockhart, and Marcus Williams.
I have something. I'm going to stand here before my time starts. I asked them when I called today if I could say this before my time starts because I thought it was important. So I hope you all look at me and listen when I speak. Before I begin and before my time starts, I politely ask, did you show myself and others the respect of truly listening when we speak? After all, that is the same respect that you ask of us when you all speak. I have seen some in this chamber posting on Twitter, texting, while families bravely spoke about their pain. And excuse me if I get emotional. And when you hear my speech, you'll know why. And I, for one, will not speak this evening. I will wait for each of you patiently for your attention to what I have to say. Are we ready? Thank you. I am Joanne Thomas, the proud daughter of Sergeant George Miles Sr. and the stepdaughter of Norman Bannis. The decisions that put our loved ones in early graves were made by many, from the local level, the state, and the federal. Our families know all the names of those who assisted in digging our loved ones' graves, those who used our pain for their gain, or sat silently during our family's nightmare. One name being Michael Mendoza. He was the public health commissioner during COVID, and he had a hand in making decisions that affected and changed our lives permanently. Many of you know him because you voted to reappoint him against our family's wishes. I am here because you all have been given the knowledge as to why a man in a powerful position who ignored our family's numerous requests to speak with him and even closed his office early the day we stood outside begging for his time and the lives of our loved ones. The man who is making life and death decisions. You know why he suddenly left 15 months ago. 15 months into a 6-year reappointment. I will. I'm almost done. Thank you. And yes, we've heard the rumors mostly that it was personal. I'm sorry, but we all know that personal issues, in whatever they may be, especially ones that require you to give a 48-hour notice to a county building or not speaking until the world ends, can often affect one's ability to do their job effectively and efficiently. I'm almost done. Our loved ones last season's. I am. Our loved ones.
One more sentence. You're well over your time now.
Yep. Did you use my 2 minutes for when I asked? Because they told me they would not.
My apologies, everyone gets 2 minutes, ma'am.
Right, and that was not my 2 minutes. I was told I would not get that. Does anybody have a problem with me finishing my statement?
Just 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss.
It tells.
Thank you. Sorry to hear that.
Wow, I cannot believe what you all did to Joanne Thompson. You wouldn't even let her talk. Come on, you wouldn't even let her get a sentence out? My goodness. What a show, what a charade this whole legislature is. It's obvious that the federal building is running the show from the Senate and Congress. I know that you're all working for Schumer and Morelli down at the federal building, and that's why the residents' priorities are not being met, and that's why the legislative districts are not represented equally according to the 14th Amendment. And so you all should be in compliance with the 14th Amendment. Whatever that says, you should be in compliance of. In terms of who is receiving the majority of the tax funds, it's become obvious that the Monroe County Democrat Committee is at the center of every heist, inevitably, including the thousands of members in the Alpha Phi, Omega Psi Phi, and Delta Sigma Theta fraternities that collectively control every level and the majority of all the seats in county and the state government and the city government and the school boards and the town boards. All the MCDC. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. You're all in on it, and we're not a part of the club. It's not any one person, it's just a collective of people working together in secrecy, in their temples, in their wardrobes, looking funny and looking goofy, and they're all members of the RCSD, the City Hall, the Monroe County Democrat committees. When I go and I talk to literally thousands of people this month and gather tons of signatures, the top priorities from people that I talk to is always inevitably public safety, education, transportation, jobs, low taxes, and of course representation in government. What that means is that We have a long way to go. There's a comprehensive plan that needs to be addressed at the city and at the county level. And I tend to believe the city charter is extremely racist, and that needs to be corrected. And there's a city hall meeting coming up on Thursday to address that. Of course, the ARPA funds need to be thoroughly vetted and not just handed out to your friends in the Monroe County Democrat Committee, because again, the people who are managing the money are the people in the federal building, the county, and thank you.
Test. Good to go? I can start? Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Marcus C. Williams, not Marcus Williams. That's somebody else. All right. So I'd like to thank everybody that's here tonight for being a representative of our community. But I'm going to ask, and humbly so, that you guys put legislation forth to make it so that anybody applying for a pistol permit is covered in any expenses and fees for not just the course, but also for the permitting. It is our Second Amendment right to be able to defend ourselves. And if you look at the communities most in dire need to be able to defend themselves, those are Black and brown communities that are commonly underserved. And we deserve that, not just where we live, but out in the suburbs and everywhere else as well. It is our Second Amendment right. Please put forth legislation on that part. Secondly, I'd like to talk about how I had to go to the bathroom, but I couldn't go to the bathroom over here because I had to go downstairs because of the anti-American jihadists, terrorists that you guys let come in here and act a raw fool, a raw riot. And nobody said or did anything, and now us, the rest of the people in the community, must actually get the repercussions because nobody did anything about them. None of y'all are out here condemning them for their anti-American rhetoric. They're out there saying death to America. There's no solution but an intifada revolution, which is an armed revolution against our government in a foreign interest, okay? Now, I'm an American. My family's been here since before America's been a country. They're talking about death to America. That's death to me, all my countrymen, all of you, and you guys are letting that go. That's a terroristic threat. More so than that, that's a threat against each and every one of our lives. They need to be put in jail at least, if not put before a war tribunal, okay? This is very serious, and the more that you indulge them, the more emboldened that they get, as we see. And that's what's going on now. So I encourage you guys, stand up and actually speak out against them and tell them that what they're doing is not right, because it is not okay. And that's my request. Those are my two requests from you. Thank you guys very much. Be blessed and be well.
Our next speaker is Carrie Remus.
Honorable legislators, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Carrie Remus. I was born and bred in Monroe County, and for more than 3 decades, I've worked in nonprofit administration and public policy. Today, though, I'm here as a poll worker, your poll worker. My experience at the polls spans 5 years, 2 states, 3 counties, and a handful of polling sites. For the last 2 elections, I've served as the Democratic chair at a fairly large consolidated polling site in Irondequoit. This experience has given me a front row seat to the growing voter distrust and poll worker shortage that is straining elections across the county. I believe these problems are interconnected and have reached a crisis in Monroe County, albeit a silent one. 2 minutes is not enough to sound the alarm about such an important and complex issue. This week, I'll be emailing you all a letter detailing the concerns I've informally gathered from a group of poll workers, as well as suggestions for improvement that we have offered to Commissioners Nicolay and Ortiz to no avail. I will also share new research on election integrity, as well as data compiled by the New York State Board of Elections that I believe validate the poll worker concerns and calls for improvement. I've discussed my concerns already with some of you. Consistently, you've told me that you were unaware of these problems, which is no surprise since you have no standing elections oversight committee. The legislature and the public has no status reports or early warnings of administrative problems, no mechanism to monitor compliance with state and federal election laws, and no regular feedback from stakeholders. While you wait for my letter, I ask you to reflect on whether or not the county is truly prepared for the unprecedented demands of the 2028 presidential election, and if it has taken the necessary steps to increase election security for voters and poll workers alike. This is the question that we poll workers have been asking. We've yet to get a solid answer from the Board of Elections. For many of us, the answer will be central to whether or not we will continue to serve at the polls. Thank you for your service and for your consideration today. Keep an eye out for my letter.
This concludes the public forum.
We will now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda? Yes, legislator.
I would move that we consider the entire agenda as one, with the exception of items number 15, 17, 18, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, and 28.
Moved by legislator Udelson, seconded by legislator Dondorfer.
Before we get a vote, Legislator Brew, can we just make sure your camera's back on? If you can hear me. Yes, I'll read them for you. Yep. So we have a motion on the floor to move the agenda as a whole, except for items number 15, 17, 18, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28.
Brew on camera.
Legislator Brew, if your video isn't on, you'll just miss the vote. Oh, my apologies. Yep.
Okay, the motion to exclude those items. All in favor? Yep.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item carries.
Should be on item number 15. Referral number 24-0133, scheduling and holding second public hearing required for purpose of hearing public comments on Monroe County's current grant funding from New York State Office of Community Renewal for Community Development Block Grant, CARES Act, CDBG funding for project number 1705 CVSB 69-22, working capital program totaling $2,970,000.
Moved by legislator Frazier, seconded by legislator Mafucci. Is there any discussion? Legislator McCabe.
Through the president to the administration, what happens if we vote this down?
Through the president, this second hearing is required at the end of the grant to solicit comments on the effectiveness of the program's administration. If the legislature doesn't hold the second hearing, we wouldn't be in compliance with the grant terms from New York State.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 17, referral 24-0135, accepting grant from New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for Operation Stone Garden Program and authorizing intermunicipal agreements with towns of Greece, Arundecoit, and Webster.
Moved by legislator Long, seconded by legislator Blankley and Mafucci. Is there any discussion? Yes, legislator Cruz.
Legislator Cruz, can you speak into that mic next to you? There you go. Yeah. Yep.
I would like to start by saying that I believe in protecting our borders. However, for some members in our community, seeing a connection between Border Patrol and local police agencies can lead them from contacting local enforcement for help, of fear, or deportation. In the spirit of clarification, how does the Sheriff Department and or other local agencies work in conjunction with the Border Patrol through the Stone Garden program?
Through the President, Chief Deputy Michael Fowler for the Sheriff's Office. For clarification, I can only speak for the Sheriff's Office. Our participation in Operation Stone Garden has been consistent over the several years that we participated in this program. We have not ever and have no intention of conducting any immigration control at all through this program or any other. Our pure and only operational intention out of this is to secure the borders. Drug trafficking, gun trafficking, human trafficking, and any terroristic threat. We do participate with the Border Patrol to the extent that they provide the funding, so we have to allow them to be notified of when we conduct a detail, and they reserve the right to accompany us to observe what we're doing, but they do not control our operational tactics. They do not tell us what to do and how to do it.
One last question through the chair to the administration. So is it safe to say that any person within our county can reach out to any department or at this point, I guess, the Sheriff's Department for help, or looking records or anything?
Through the President, that's correct, with one exception. Should we become aware of criminal charges, we would have to balance that public interest. That does not mean that we would always make a notify for their immigration status. In fact, we don't do that unless there is an overriding concern for public safety.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, legislator Hugh Smith.
Madam President, to the administration, are you able to state with 100% certainty that when Border Patrol is accompanying you on these investigations that they are then not able to proceed and do further investigations of their own accord?
Through the President, I can state that the amount of times the Border Patrol accompanies us is minuscule. They just do not have the personnel to be able to do that. For example, they will occasionally accompany us on the boats when the weather happens to be beautiful. I cannot speak as to 100% certainty as to what they do. I can tell you that we do not observe it, and we in no way assist in that operation.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that's the case. I would like to explain my vote. I will still be voting no because it is my experience as an educator in this state for more than 20 years that many young people who may have relatives or who are undocumented are afraid to reach out to law enforcement when they have a problem because of the relationship between law enforcement and Border Patrol or immigration services of some kind. I think it would be to the safety of our community for it to be more clear, our community members, that the Sheriff's Department not going to collaborate with those agencies. They will be a place of safety for our community members and focus on the needs of this community.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes no. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes no. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick votes yes. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes yes. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes no. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier votes yes. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman votes no. Ms. Hugh Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith votes no. Mr. Johns. Johns votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes yes. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes yes. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes yes. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes yes. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne votes yes. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes yes. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes no. President Roman.
Yes.
President Roman votes yes. 22-6, resolution passes. Item number 18, referral 24-0136, accepting grant from New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services for offices of Public Defender, Conflict Defender, and Assigned Counsel Program for second statewide expansion of Hurl Herring Program.
Moved by legislator Long, second by legislator Mafucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, item carries. Next item.
Item number 22, referral 24-0188, confirming appointment to Monroe County Board of Health.
Moved by legislator Barnhart, second by legislator Hasman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 23, referral 24-0189, mortgage tax distribution.
Moved by legislator Mafucci, second by legislator Uderson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 24, referral 24-0190, confirming appointments to the Monroe County Environmental Management Council.
Moved by legislator Udelson, seconded by legislator Burgess. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 25, referral 24-0191, confirming appointment to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial of Greater Rochester Board.
Moved by legislator Udelson, seconded by legislator Burgess. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 27,
Yes.
referral 24-0193, requesting the legislature of the state of New York pursuant to Article 9 of the Constitution to enact into law Senate Bill number S 9393 entitled An Act in relation to authorizing the County of Monroe to provide for an easement across Lehigh Valley Trail Park for ingress and egress to and from the project site and installation of a medium voltage cable.
Moved by legislator Udelson, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, yes. Let's go for a roll call.
Roll call vote. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes yes. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick votes yes. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes yes. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes no. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
No.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes no. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier votes yes. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman votes yes. Ms. Hugh Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith votes yes. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes yes. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes yes. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes no. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes yes. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne votes yes. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes yes. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes no. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes yes. President Roman.
Yes.
President Roman votes yes. 24-5, resolution passes. Item number 28, referral 24-0194, requesting the legislature of the state of New York pursuant to Article 9 of the Constitution to enact into law Assembly Bill number A10129-A entitled An Act in relation to authorizing the County of Monroe to provide for an easement across Lehigh Valley Trail Park for ingress and egress to and from the project site and installation of a medium voltage cable.
Moved by legislator Udelson, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, roll call vote. Or is it?
We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes yes. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick votes yes. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes yes. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes no. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
No.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes no. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier votes yes. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman votes yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith votes yes. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes yes. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes yes. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes no. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes yes. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne votes yes. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes yes. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes no. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes yes. President Roman.
Yes.
President Roman votes yes. 24-5, resolution passes.
Thank you. There being no unfinished business, legislator Udelson.
Adjourned until 6 p.m. 7, 2024.
Meeting adjourned.